She offered her lunch to a wandering stray without hesitation, just a simple act of kindness. But when dawn broke the next day, no one was prepared for the extraordinary consequence of that small gesture. In a modest suburban neighborhood, where small houses line a quiet street and children's laughter often floats on the breeze, an unremarkable day took a heartwarming turn. 8-year-old Mia, known for her shy smile and gentle nature, packed her usual ham and cheese sandwich for school. During lunchtime, instead of enjoying her break in the crowded cafeteria, she slipped outside to the schoolyard's edge, seeking a spot of sunshine away from the noisy chatter. That was when she spotted an emaciated, mud-streaked dog sniffing around for scraps by the trash bin. Though the stray had ragged fur and tired eyes, something in its gaze tugged at Mia's heart. She hadn't seen this dog before. Perhaps it was new to the area or simply passing through, but its ribs were painfully visible, and each labored breath hinted at hunger and fatigue. Without a second thought, Mia approached slowly, careful not to startle it. She set her sandwich on the ground and stepped back, watching as the dog cautiously inched forward, nose quivering in uncertainty. After a moment's hesitation, it devoured the offering, tail giving a timid wag that spoke of gratitude despite its fear. When the lunch bell rang, Mia reluctantly returned to her classroom, leaving the dog behind. She told no one about what she'd done, unsure how her teacher or classmates might react to her feeding a stray. Yet, as she walked home that afternoon, Mia's thoughts circled back to the dog. Where would it go tonight? Would it find more food? She wished she could offer more than one sandwich, but she had so little control over her own meals, relying on her parents' modest budget. Little did Mia know that this unassuming act of kindness would set into motion events beyond her imagination. For while most stray dogs wandered off after a single meal, this particular canine would return, and not simply to beg for scraps. The next morning, something so astonishing would transpire that Mia's quiet routine would never be the same again. In the hush of that suburban night, the wheels of fate turned, weaving a small child's compassion into a chain of consequences that would leave the entire neighborhood speechless. Early the next morning, Mia woke to the gentle hum of the household. Her mother bustled in the kitchen, preparing coffee, while her father checked emails on a battered laptop. The usual school day routine was in motion, but Mia's mind drifted to the ragged dog she'd fed the day before. As she dressed, she wondered if it was still wandering the streets, stomach growling, searching for scraps. Her heart tightened at the memory of its sunken eyes and trembling posture. Even so, the thought that she had helped hunt, if only for a single meal, brought a shy sense of pride. After a quick breakfast of cereal, Mia gathered her school books and lunch bag. She glanced inside, noting her mother had packed an extra piece of fruit this time, a small orange that Mia secretly vowed to keep handy in case the stray appeared again. She couldn't stop picturing the dog's silent gratitude. Her mother, noticing Mia's distant expression, asked if everything was all right. Mia offered a half smile, nodding. She didn't share her thoughts. She didn't want her parents worrying or insisting she avoid stray animals. On the short walk to school, Mia passed rows of modest houses and tidy lawns. The sky was a quiet blue, and a gentle breeze rustled leaves along the sidewalk. A few neighbors waved from driveways, warming the air with friendly greetings. Normally, Mia would wave back with a bright smile, but today she felt a subdued eagerness in her steps. She found herself scanning corners, fences, and shrubbery for any sign of the stray. Yet, as she neared the schoolyard, no trace of the dog emerged, no wagging tail, no gaunt form sniffing around dumpsters. With a twinge of disappointment, Mia joined the throng of students hurrying inside when the bell rang. Classes passed in a blur, spelling tests, math drills, and a science lesson on plant growth. Her thoughts intermittently floated to the dog's uncertain fate. She considered slipping out during lunch as before, but her teacher, Ms. Carter, insisted on a special classroom activity. By the time Mia had the chance to peek outside, lunch break was nearly over, and the playground was bustling with classmates, no stray dog in sight. Suppressing a sigh, she reminded herself that she'd done what she could. Maybe the dog had moved on or found another kind soul to feed it. As the final bell sounded, Mia trudged out with her backpack, trying not to appear crestfallen. She told herself maybe the dog would appear tomorrow or maybe never. She'd offered kindness, and sometimes that was enough. Halfway home, she paused at the sight of the empty spot near the school fence where she'd left the sandwich. Nothing stirred but a gust of wind blowing dust across the pavement. Exhaling, Mia continued on her way, feeling a gentle pang of regret. The rest of the evening unfolded routinely. A short period of homework, a quiet dinner of rice and vegetables, then a bit of TV. Her parents asked if she wanted to walk to the corner store for milk, but Mia shook her head. She found herself unusually tired. Before bed, she knelt beside her small window, gazing at the star-flecked sky. She whispered a soft hope. Please, let the dog be safe. Let it find food or someone who cares. After clicking off her bedside lamp, she curled up under a warm blanket, drifting into dreams of chasing a playful dog through sunlit fields, far from any hunger or fear. When morning arrived, the house hummed with its familiar routine. Mia woke with a lingering drowsiness and hurried to get dressed. She glanced at the clock, realizing she had less time than usual. It was only when she stepped into the living room that she noticed something amiss in her parents' demeanor. Her father, a subdued man who rarely showed alarm, stood by the window peering out. Her mother, hands folded tensely, beckoned Mia over. Confused, Mia joined them, heart fluttering with sudden anticipation. Outside, near the front porch, huddled the same skinny dog from yesterday. It lay on the doormat, seemingly waiting for something. Mia pressed her face to the window pane, eyes widening. Could it be that it remembered her? The father, noticing Mia's astonished look, opened the door a crack, calling softly to the stray. At first, the dog retreated a step, but then it recognized Mia's form behind him, her cautious wave, the same gentle eyes as before. Ears perking, the dog took a trembling step forward, tail giving a tentative wag. Mia's mother exhaled in bewilderment. "Is that dog waiting for you?" she asked, half in wonder, half in concern. Mia, excitement bubbling, answered with a quiet stammer, "He must have followed my scent and from school, or perhaps he just roamed the streets all night, drawn to the one person who offered him kindness." The mother, protective instincts roused, hesitated. "He looks so thin," she murmured, scanning the dog's protruding ribs and matted fur. "He might be sick or carrying fleas." Yet Mia's father, once an amateur caretaker of stray cats in his youth, softened at the sight. "He came here for a reason," he said. "We should at least feed him, maybe check if he's hurt." In that moment, the parents exchanged a silent debate. Allowing a stray dog near their daughter carried risks, diseases, unknown temperament, possible aggression. Yet the gentle way the dog gazed at Mia, and Mia's own unwavering compassion swayed them. The father ventured outside, inching closer with slow, deliberate movements. The dog tensed, but didn't flee, its weary eyes glued to the man's cautious approach. Meanwhile, Mia cracked the door further, a half-smile trembling on her lips. She still clutched her lunch bag, which contained an extra sandwich, thanks to her mother's thoughtful packing. Within minutes, the father set a small dish of water on the porch. Mia knelt beside it, extending bits of bread from her sandwich. The dog, as if recalling the previous day's mercy, crept forward, muscles taut. When it finally took the morsel from Mia's outstretched hand, the father saw tears well in his daughter's eyes. This wasn't a random stray soliciting scraps, but a creature that recognized her kindness and braved the night's cold to seek her out. Over the next hour, as Mia coaxed the dog into part of the yard, the parents realized a profound moment had arrived. They had the chance to help this animal more substantially, and in doing so, perhaps impart a deeper lesson to their daughter about responsibility and compassion. Or yet, as neighbors passed by, some paused with puzzled expressions, uncertain how to react to the sight of the stray on Mia's porch. Whispers arose. Should the family take it in or call animal control? The father, though sympathetic, wrestled with uncertainty. Financially, they weren't flush with spare funds for vet bills, but sending the dog away to an overcrowded shelter might seal its fate. Mia, face bright with hope, offered no hesitation. "He found us for a reason," she insisted softly. "One small act of kindness led the dog here. What else might their second act bring?" In the gentle morning sun, the father patted the dog's coarse fur, resolving to see just how unexpected life could get when you open your door to a hungry stray. Morning sun lit up the modest front yard where Mia and her parents now faced an unexpected decision. The stray dog, grateful yet timid, had spent part of the early hours dozing on their doormat, as if unwilling to leave the one place that offered a shred of comfort. By the time Mia was ready for school, the dog's presence had become the topic of hushed family debate. Her mother, who typically championed practicalities, worried about fleas, potential diseases, and the cost of veterinary care. "We barely have room in our budget," she murmured, absently stirring coffee, "and we don't know this dog's temperament beyond a single act of kindness." Mia, biting her lip, cradled a piece of leftover chicken in her hand, eager to offer the dog breakfast. The father, more soft-hearted than he sometimes let on, glanced through the window at the dog's haggard appearance, recalling the loyalty animals sometimes showed when they sensed true compassion. "He found his way to our doorstep," he reasoned gently. "We owe him at least some help." Hearing those words, Mia's eyes lit with relief. She hurried outside, father in tow, brandishing the small plate of chicken. At the sight of them, the stray lifted its head, tail thumping once against the ground, tentative but hopeful. Mia approached carefully, her father watching for any sign of aggression, but the dog merely scooted closer, muzzle quivering. Without ceremony, it devoured the chicken bits, seemingly too hungry to be choosy. Mia beamed at the father. "See? He's sweet." The father patted the dog's neck, ruffling coarse fur. "He's definitely underweight," he murmured, concern creeping into his tone. Any illusions of a simple morning routine faded as the father realized Emma needed to get to school soon. The mother, stepping onto the porch with car keys in hand, hesitated. "We can't leave him here unsupervised," she whispered. "What if he wanders off or tries to get inside the house searching for food?" The father considered locking the dog in their fenced backyard, but that felt callous, especially without knowing how it would react to confinement. Mia pleaded, "Dad, can't we bring him in just for the day so he doesn't run away?" Her mother hesitated, eyebrows knitting with worry. In the end, practicality won over. The father decided to coax the dog into the backyard, setting out water and a makeshift shelter under the carport's overhang. "We'll see if he stays," he offered gently. Time pressed them. Mia was already late. She and her mother rushed into the car, while the father remained behind to finalize the dog's temporary setup. After patting the stray's head, he murmured, "We'll be back soon, boy." The dog's eyes followed him, haunted by a lifetime of distrust, yet sparked by the faintest flicker of faith. Locking the gate, the father left for work on foot, glancing over his shoulder every few paces. Part of him feared the dog would vanish, another part worried it might cause trouble or injure itself, but this felt like the only option for now. Throughout the day, Mia's mind flitted between schoolwork and concern for the dog. She found it difficult to focus on her spelling quiz or group activities, drawn instead to images of the stray pacing in her yard. At lunchtime, she fiddled with her sandwich, recalling how the simple act of giving away her lunch had sparked all this. A friend, noticing her distraction, asked if she felt okay. Mia managed a small nod, not ready to share the entire story with classmates who might not understand. Yet, a soft sense of excitement brewed in her. There was a dog waiting at her home, reliant on her family's compassion. She couldn't help but wonder if this might become a permanent rescue scenario, or if the dog would slip away before evening. When she arrived home, the father greeted her in the driveway, a cautious smile on his face. "He's still there," he said, nodding toward the backyard. Mia's eyes lit up, relief washing over her. Sure enough, peering through the gate, they saw the stray curled in a corner, dozing fitfully. The father explained that during lunch, he checked on the dog and offered more water, plus a small bowl of leftover rice and scraps. "He's so hungry," he murmured, "like he hasn't eaten well in days." Yet tensions arose that evening when the mother returned from work and discovered the father browsing local veterinary websites. "We can't afford an expensive vet bill," she reminded him, voice tight with stress. But the father argued gently, "We at least need to see if he's injured or sick. We can't keep him in the yard otherwise. It's irresponsible." Mia hovered in the hallway, heart pounding. She dreaded the mother's final word being no, or that the dog might be turned out again. But the mother, glancing at Mia's anxious expression, softened. "Let's see what a basic checkup costs," she sighed. "No promises on long-term care yet." That compromise gave way to a new plan. The following day, they'd attempt to coax the dog into the car for a quick vet visit. Emma's father was no stranger to handling nervous animals, having grown up on a farm, so he felt reasonably confident they could manage without sedation or force. Mia, thrilled by the chance to help properly, spent the night crocheting a small blanket for the dog, a lopsided creation of mismatched yarn, but made with earnest affection. Neighbors soon caught wind of the stray's presence. A few popped by with kind advice or dog food samples, while others cautioned that harboring a stray might bring fleas or legal issues if it bit someone. One even mentioned calling animal control to avoid liability. The father juggled these varied opinions with polite neutrality, determined to make the right choice for both the dog and his family. Each passing comment reminded him of how precarious this arrangement was. Emma, though, bristled at any suggestion of handing the dog over to a shelter. She whispered to Rex at the fence, "We won't let them take you away. I promise." Thus, as night fell again, the family found themselves stepping gingerly into the responsibilities of rescue. Emma's mother rummaged through the pantry for leftover soup bones, eyeing the father uncertainly. The father, in turn, weighed the cost of a vet visit against the moral burden of turning away a helpless creature. And Emma curled up on the couch, imagining the dog asleep in the backyard, dreaming of a life free from hunger and fear. In that subtle hush, the family collectively realized something extraordinary had begun. A single act of lunchtime kindness had entwined them with a stray who needed far more than a sandwich. Whether they'd face financial strain, neighborly objections, or heartbreak if the dog proved too wild, none could deny the sense of promise, even destiny, in the dog's choice to trust them. Little did they know, the unexpected turn that awaited them all would surpass anything they might envision, a lesson in how compassion, once offered, can spark a chain of miracles far larger than one humble suburban yard. That night, a soft rain drummed on the roof as Emma lay awake, listening to each gentle patter. Her mind refused to quiet. Thoughts of the stray dog in their yard flickered with each beat of rain. She worried about whether the small shelter under the carport kept him dry if he felt safe alone in the dark. A glance at her bedside clock told her it was almost midnight. Finally, unable to quell her curiosity, she slipped out of bed, tiptoed down the hallway, and carefully opened the back door just enough to peek outside. Moonlight shimmered on the puddled cement, revealing the dog curled atop the mismatched blankets her father had left. At Emma's soft, questioning whisper, "Hey, you okay, boy?" The dog's head lifted. Its eyes reflected the faint glow, revealing a weary acceptance. Emma's heart twisted at how pitiful it looked, fur soaked in places the carport roof didn't fully shield. She longed to beckon him inside, but she also respected her parents' caution. Instead, she whispered, "We'll take you to the vet tomorrow. Get you feeling better." She couldn't tell if the dog understood, but it blinked at her, a small sign of acknowledgement. Reluctantly, Emma closed the door, tiptoeing back to her room. Sleep claimed her soon after, laced with dreams of the dog racing across sunlit fields, free from neglect. Morning arrived with a crisp clarity after the rain. While Emma helped her mother set the table for breakfast, her father ventured out to the backyard. She hovered anxiously, waiting for a verdict. He returned, face pensive yet hopeful. "He's still here," he reported, "and seems willing to let me near him. No snarling this time." Emma's eyes lit up. "So we can try the vet." The father nodded, detailing a plan. He'd open the side gate, coax the dog with gentle commands and food, then guide it into the car. Emma would wait in the house until he was sure it was safe. A flutter of excitement and nerves danced in Emma's stomach. The moment came soon after. The father prepared a leash, an old soft harness he once used for walking a neighbor's dog. Calmly, he approached the stray, kneeling a few feet away, murmuring reassuring words. The dog eyed the harness warily, ears half flattened but didn't back away. In slow increments, the father slipped the harness around its narrow chest. Emma peeked from the porch, hands clasped in silent support. Though the dog tensed, it allowed the father to tighten the straps without a fight. A soft sigh of relief escaped him. "Let's get you some help," he said quietly. Leading the dog to the car was a delicate dance. It balked at the sight of the vehicle, tail tucking, but a few gentle tugs plus the promise of more leftover chicken lured it inside. Emma, perched beside her mother in the back seat, maintained a soothing tone. Once the dog settled on a blanket, the father started the engine. The car ride to the vet clinic, an unassuming building on the edge of town, felt surreal for Emma. She sensed how each bump, each unfamiliar smell, might overwhelm the dog. Still, he stayed in place, muzzle resting on Emma's lap after a few cautious sniffs, a silent testament to the trust blooming between them. At the clinic, the veterinarian, Dr. Willems, a gentle, middle-aged woman with kind eyes, welcomed them. "Let's see what we have here," she murmured, guiding them into an exam room smelling faintly of antiseptic. The dog trembled at the metallic table, yet not once did it snap or growl at the vet's touch. Emma's father explained the situation. They'd found it lurking around underweight and apparently homeless, but with a gentle disposition that suggested no major aggression. Dr. Willems nodded, listening intently while checking the dog's teeth, eyes, and coat. The diagnosis came quickly: malnourished, mild dehydration, possible flea infestation, but no immediate signs of severe injury or illness. "A bit of TLC, doctor," Willems concluded, "and he should recover nicely if you're committed." Here emerged the first twist, a major revelation in Emma's eyes. The dog wasn't as old or broken as it appeared. Under the grime and exhaustion lay a moderately young canine, likely only a year or two past puppyhood. Dr. Willems surmised it might be a mix of a shepherd or hound breed, ironically strong and resilient if given proper care. While it certainly had endured neglect, there was no sign of abuse or aggression. "His temperament's quite stable," the vet added, glancing at Emma. "If you keep him, he could become a wonderful companion, though it will take time and resources." The mother and father exchanged glances, uncertain. Emma's face glowed with hope. She piped up, uncharacteristically bold, "We'll do it, right, Dad?" The father hesitated, weighed down by financial constraints and the gravity of taking in a new pet. The mother, pressing her lips together, questioned Dr. Willems about costs, vaccines, flea treatment, potential spaying or neutering. Though not extravagant, it amounted to a strain on their tight budget. Sensing their conflict, Dr. Willems offered an understanding nod, proposing a reduced fee for basic treatments, explaining that sometimes local charities helped offset stray dog expenses. "I believe in giving these animals a second chance," she said softly. As they left the clinic with the dog, now sporting fresh flea medication and a small bandage from a minor scratch, Emma clutched a pamphlet on caring for rescues. Her mind spun with plans. She'd help with chores to offset costs, maybe tutor younger kids for spare change, or skip an upcoming school trip if it meant affording the dog's needs. The father recognized her determination. His gaze softened. He saw that the stray wasn't just a random dog anymore. It had become Emma's cause, a reflection of her gentle heart. On the drive home, Emma lovingly petted the dog's neck, murmuring, "We'll fix you up, get you strong. You'll see." The dog, eyelids drooping under sedation from the flea meds, rested quietly, trusting these humans who offered more than a single sandwich. Watching them in the rearview mirror, the father felt a pang. Are we truly ready for this commitment? Can we manage another mouth to feed? Yet deeper than worry lay a blossoming conviction. Emma's kindness had brought the stray this far. Perhaps that same kindness would carry them through any difficulties ahead. Pulling into their driveway, clouds parted, allowing a shaft of sunlight to illuminate the dog's weary eyes. Emma's mother unbuckled, gently assisting the father in guiding the dog out of the car. The dog gingerly tested the ground, ears perked at the familiar yard. The harness and leash felt odd around its shoulders, but it followed Emma, tail brushing her calf in what looked like gratitude. Over the next few hours, they introduced the dog to a comfy old blanket indoors, just in the utility room for now, while ensuring it didn't panic in an enclosed space. As dusk fell, Emma's mother prepared a modest meal of rice, scrambled eggs, and bits of leftover chicken for their new guest. Emma, kneeling, set the bowl down. The dog sniffed warily before devouring it. A hush enveloped the moment. Something deeper than a typical pet adoption was unfolding. Emma sensed it in the dog's eyes. The father sensed it in Emma's unwavering resolve. And the mother, though cautious, sensed it in the hush of the home, where a second chance for both child and stray took root under one roof. The morning after the vet visit brought a mix of excitement and trepidation to Mia's home. The stray, newly identified as young, malnourished, but overall healthy, slept peacefully in the utility room, breathing softly on the tattered blanket Mia had set out. As her father brewed coffee, Mia tiptoed over to check on the dog, delight lighting her eyes when she found it gazing at her with cautious curiosity. The sight of its ears perked at her approach tugged her heartstrings, reminding her of just how far they'd come in such a short time. Her mother, though still wary of the family's financial constraints, couldn't deny the dog's calm demeanor now that it had some basic care. She stood in the doorway with arms folded, scanning the dog's thin frame. "He looks better already," she murmured, noting its more alert posture. Mia and her father exchanged relieved smiles. While they still faced the reality of more vet bills, vaccinations, deworming, possibly spaying or neutering, they couldn't help but feel the dog's presence brought a gentle warmth to the household. Yet, the father recognized that adopting a stray was no simple undertaking. He began drawing up mental lists of responsibilities. Where would the dog sleep long-term? How would they manage feeding costs on top of existing expenses? What about potential training if behavioral issues emerged? Sensing his inward turmoil, Mia offered to help more around the house, perhaps do small tasks for neighbors to earn pocket money. "We can make it work," she insisted with a determined gleam in her eye. Her father patted her shoulder, a soft smile crossing his features. "Let's take it day by day," he replied. "We don't even know his name yet." That question, naming the dog, sparked a friendly debate during breakfast. Mia suggested everything from Lucky to Shadow, while her mother pointed out the dog's soulful brown eyes, which might fit a name like Rusty. The father, half amused, cautioned that they should wait until they felt sure they were keeping the dog. "So otherwise, it'll be harder if we decide we can't handle this." Mia's face fell at the idea of giving up the stray, but she nodded, understanding the caution. For now, they simply called him Buddy, a placeholder that carried a glimmer of affection. Meanwhile, news of the family's decision to shelter the stray percolated through the neighborhood. Some neighbors, touched by Mia's kindness, applauded the father for stepping up. Mrs. Parker across the street dropped off a bag of old dog toys her grandchildren no longer used. "Every dog deserves a chance," she insisted, winking at Mia. However, another neighbor, Mr. Kemp, voiced concerns. "What if he's got a hidden aggression? Are you sure it's safe for Mia?" he pressed, crossing his arms. The father calmly explained the vet's assessment of the dog's gentle temperament, yet Mr. Kemp remained skeptical. "Just keep that mutt from roaming onto my property," he grunted, walking off. Mia overheard the exchange, a flicker of hurt crossing her face. She never wanted to cause conflict among neighbors. Behind closed doors, the mother relayed her own reservations. "We need to be prepared if he has fleas or ticks we haven't spotted yet, or if he chews up furniture." She eyed the ragged couch in their small living room, imagining further wear. The father assured her they could confine the dog to certain rooms while adjusting, plus bathe him regularly. "It's not going to be easy," he admitted, "but look at Mia. This is the happiest I've seen her in ages." Indeed, Mia's glow each time she interacted with the dog was unmistakable, a testament to the bond forming between them. One afternoon, as Mia headed to school, she found herself absent-mindedly humming a tune. Her thoughts drifted from math tests to the dog's brightening eyes and playful tail wags. At recess, she confided in her best friend, Lily, about how the dog had stayed overnight in their utility room. Lily's eyes widened in excitement. "That's awesome! Are you naming him?" Mia shrugged, cheeks flushing. "Not yet, but I'm calling him Buddy until we decide." Lily, brimming with enthusiasm, asked if she could visit after school to meet the newest addition. Mia hesitated, Her father hadn't fully opened the house to visitors, especially with the dog still acclimating. Ultimately, she promised to ask permission. Part of her felt a swell of pride, wanting to show Lily how a single sandwich had led to this magical turn of events. Back at home, routine adjustments began in earnest. The father rearranged a corner of the utility room with an old dog bed a neighbor donated, plus a small set of bowls for food and water. He and Mia took turns walking the dog around their backyard on a leash, allowing it to stretch its legs safely without risking escape. Each trek revealed the dog's skittishness around sudden noises. A slammed car door or a honking horn would send Buddy cowering behind them. "He needs reassurance," Mia's father remarked, voice tinged with empathy. "Who knows what he's been through?" Mia, stroking the dog's scruffy ears, vowed silently to ease each fear, one day at a time. A visit to Dr. Willems confirmed the dog's stable progress. No major health alarms beyond underweight and mild flea issues, both solvable with consistent care and balanced nutrition. The father breathed easier, while Mia practically bounced on her toes, asking for tips on teaching Buddy gentle commands. The vet, smiling at Mia's enthusiasm, recommended patience and positive reinforcement. "Given his calm demeanor, I suspect he'll learn quickly." She paused, glancing at the father. "But do remember he's had a rough life. He might form intense attachments or exhibit anxiety in unfamiliar settings." Such warnings rang true sooner than expected. That evening, a mild thunderstorm rolled in, thunder rumbling like distant drums. At the first crash of lightning, Buddy bolted from the utility room, scrabbling through the half-open door into the living room. Panicked, he scrambled under the dining table, whining as thunder rattled the windows. Mia dashed over, crooning soft words, draping a small blanket over his trembling body. The father watched the scene with a mixture of concern and admiration. Despite Buddy's terror, he accepted Mia's presence as solace rather than lash out or flee outside. "He trusts you," the father murmured to Mia, relief blending with the realization that a stable, loving environment was already helping the dog form a secure bond. By bedtime, the storm subsided, leaving Buddy curled at Mia's feet while she read a bedtime story aloud, an unplanned but comforting routine. The mother allowed it for the night, touched by the tender image, a once-forsaken stray dog resting in warmth, lulled by a child's soft voice. Mia, drifting off, felt the weight of the day's challenges tempered by the dog's heartbeat near her ankles. In her dreams, the road of uncertainty stretched out, but so did the promise of steadfast loyalty from a creature that once had only loneliness. If a single sandwich had already kindled so much change, who could guess what further wonders might unfold from this unanticipated bond? The first few days after rescuing the stray passed in a blur of adjustments. Mia's once quiet home bristled with small crises and tender moments. With every sunrise, the stray, still referred to as Buddy, grew stronger, his ribs gradually less pronounced as he devoured proper meals. Mia delighted in teaching him gentle commands like sit and stay, though her father reminded her not to push too fast. "He's still settling in, figuring out if we're permanent," he said gently, watching Buddy wag his tail in cautious acceptance. Yet fresh complications soon arose. Word got around the neighborhood that Mia's family had taken in a stray. While some neighbors, especially those who witnessed Mia's kindness firsthand, offered praise and even donated spare blankets or dog food, others worried about potential noise or safety issues. One elderly couple next door, set in their ways, nervously questioned the father about the dog's vaccination status and training. "We just don't want any trouble," the wife murmured, eyeing Buddy with a faint frown. Though polite, they hinted they'd complain to the landlord if they felt the dog posed a nuisance. Finances presented a subtler but no less pressing challenge. Emma's parents lived on a tight budget, juggling mortgage payments and everyday bills. Additional vet costs for shots and possible future checkups weighed on the mother's mind. During a hushed conversation one evening, the father admitted, "We can't shoulder this alone if something major happens, like surgery or a big health crisis." The mother, sipping tea, exhaled. "I know, but how can we turn him out now?" Neither had an answer, leaving an unspoken resolve to make it work somehow. Meanwhile, Mia discovered new emotional layers to caring for an animal. Each morning before school, she'd rise early to walk Buddy around the block, leashing him carefully to avoid any chance he'd wander off. He still startled at sudden sounds, a car horn, a clattering trash bin, but Mia learned to soothe him with a calm voice and gentle strokes. More than once, friends from school spotted her guiding a thin, timid dog down the sidewalk, shooting her curious glances. Mia, shy as ever, shrugged off their questions, privately cherishing each improvement Buddy made, whether a more confident stance or a softer gleam in his once dull eyes. In this evolving dynamic, Dr. Willems, the veterinarian, introduced a potential subplot. She mentioned that a small rescue organization in the next county might help with spay-neuter expenses, offering a discounted rate for found strays. They can also list him on their website if you decide you can't keep him, she added gently. Mia's heart clenched at the notion of giving Buddy away. Though her father expressed relief at the financial assistance, the mere thought of letting go forced a knot into Mia's throat. She confided in Buddy that night while lying on the living room rug, murmuring, "I want you to stay, but I'm scared we can't afford it all." Buddy responded by resting his muzzle on her knee, silent but comforting. A further subplot emerged when Ms. Henderson, Mia's teacher, heard rumor of Buddy's rescue and asked if Mia might do a brief show and tell about her new friend, minus the dog, of course, as the school had no pet policies. Mia blushed at the suggestion but felt a spark of pride. Maybe she could share how a simple act of giving away her lunch led to a transformation in both her life and the dog's. The father, upon hearing this, encouraged Mia to practice a little speech. It might inspire other kids to show compassion, he reasoned. Shyness tugged at Mia's nerves, but the chance to champion Buddy's story appealed to her. Nonetheless, not everyone was thrilled. A new hint of opposition bubbled up when a passing conversation revealed Mr. Kemp, an outspoken neighbor, grumbling about another dog barking at odd hours. Though Buddy rarely barked unless startled, Mr. Kemp insisted he'd heard noise at night. The father suspected it was the neighbor's own yard dog or a random stray, but empathy for Mr. Kemp's frustration led him to vow they'd ensure Buddy stayed inside if unsettled after dark. Mia, overhearing her father's attempt at diplomacy, realized how precarious it felt to integrate Buddy into a neighborhood where not everyone welcomed a rescue case. On top of this, one afternoon, a mail carrier knocked with a letter from the city council, updating local ordinances. The father skimmed the text, mentioning leash laws, required vaccinations, and potential fines if a dog was found roaming. The mother sighed, pointing out that with their tight budget, any slip-up could be costly. "We just have to stay on top of everything," the father responded, feeling the weight of one more responsibility. In the midst of these subplots, Buddy made a small but dramatic breakthrough. During a casual training session in the backyard, the father tested a light recall command. "Buddy, come," and the dog instantly trotted over, tail wagging, no hesitation. Mia, witnessing the moment, clapped in excitement. Her father ruffled the dog's ears, a warm pride filling his chest. This was a sign that Buddy recognized them as his people, a newfound trust blossoming in place of the wariness that once defined him. The mother, watching from the window, felt her guarded heart soften further. For each worry or complaint from neighbors, she saw how Buddy's gentle spirit enriched Mia's daily life. That night, after dinner, the family huddled around their small dining table, discussing a name for the dog. Each threw out ideas: Lucky, Scout, Prince, Buster. Laughter and debate filled the modest kitchen as they whittled down the list, looking for one that suited his gentle but brave nature. In the end, with a victorious grin, Mia's mother suggested Chance, a nod to the dog's second chance at a real home. The father smiled, Mia beamed, and so Chance it became, the stray's identity now woven tighter into their family story. Amid these subtle challenges, neighborly doubts, financial burdens, and logistical hoops, Chance's presence stirred hope in the household. Mia found new meaning in her everyday routines. Her father, though weighed by adult concerns, recognized that each small triumph, like hearing Chance's cautious bark greet him at the door, was worth the struggle. Even the mother, typically pragmatic, started leaving out an extra bite of leftover meat for Chance at breakfast. patting his head in a fond gesture as she left for work. Thus, as each subplot wove deeper into their lives, Chance's quiet, unassuming loyalty became a bright thread, steadily guiding them toward an unexpected resolution that no one could have foreseen. Weeks slipped by, carrying both small victories and subtle tensions into Mia's household. Chance, the name they'd finally settled on, relaxed more each day, reveling in the consistent meals and gentle attention. His once frail legs now showed hints of lean muscle, and a new shine glistened in his coat, where matted fur had given way to healthier growth. Mia delighted in the dog's transformation, often exclaiming over any tiny detail, like the way he trotted confidently down the hall or curled up on his dog bed with a satisfied sigh. Yet, as with any newfound responsibility, conflicts and concerns simmered just beneath the surface. One crisp afternoon, Mia's father returned from an extra work shift, sighing as he trudged into the kitchen. The mother glanced up from the dinner she was preparing, catching the shadow of stress on his face. "Overtime?" she asked. He nodded wearily. "Oh, we can manage the vet bills, but the next round of vaccines or an unexpected emergency might push us tight." Their hushed voices betrayed the financial strain that loomed like a storm cloud. Mia, listening from the living room, felt a pang of guilt. She wondered if her family quietly resented the burden Chance brought, even if they never showed it. At school, Mia, once shy, now found herself a mild celebrity. After Ms. Henderson suggested she share her rescue story in a short presentation. Classmates showered her with questions. "Is the dog super loyal? Did it follow you around all night? Can I meet him?" Though part of Mia basked in their admiration, she also sensed an undercurrent of shallow curiosity. A few kids asked if Chance performed tricks, or if he could guard them from bullies. Mia tried explaining that Chance wasn't just an accessory. He was a living creature who needed patience and love. Some nodded with enthusiasm, others drifted off, unimpressed that the dog didn't do heroic stunts on command. Even so, Mia held tight to her secret pride that Chance was quietly thriving. Meanwhile, in the neighborhood, tensions about the dog's presence flared up occasionally. A middle-aged man approached the father one morning, complaining about stray dogs rummaging through his trash. "That better not be yours," he grumbled. The father calmly reassured him that Chance never roamed unsupervised. "We keep a fence, and he's inside when we're out," the father explained, though annoyance pinched his tone. The man left with a dismissive shrug, fueling the father's worry that any stray dog mischief might be unfairly blamed on Chance. The greatest emotional dilemma, though, bubbled within Mia herself. As the initial excitement of adopting Chance mellowed, and the father's quiet references to money woes leaked into conversation, she felt torn between devotion to the dog and a nagging guilt that she'd complicated her parents' lives. Should she offer her modest savings, birthday money she'd tucked away? But she only had a few dollars, hardly enough to offset vet fees. Sometimes, late at night, she lay awake wondering if, by feeding that sandwich, she'd started a chain reaction that weighed on her parents too heavily. Yet, seeing Chance's trusting gaze each morning, she couldn't fathom sending him back to the streets. Adding another wrinkle, Miss Carter, the town's mild-mannered mail carrier, began leaving small dog treats in their mailbox. She'd greet Chance with a soft, "Hey, buddy," whenever she delivered letters, gently petting his ears through the fence. Through casual chat, she confided in the father that she once rescued a stray herself, but ended up unable to keep it due to apartment rules. "I'm so glad you're giving him a chance," she told Mia, smiling at the pun on his name. Mia beamed back, her heart warmed by the gesture. Though she remained acutely aware not everyone shared Missy Carter's enthusiasm, in an unexpected twist, Dr. Willems, the vet who had overseen Chance's initial care, reached out with a proposition. A local rescue group was hosting a small fundraising fair, hoping to promote success stories of strays finding loving homes. She wondered if Mia and her father might speak briefly about Chance's journey. The father, though flattered, worried about public attention once more. "I don't want to be paraded as a hero," he muttered. "We're just doing what felt right." Mia, however, felt a pull toward showing off how far Chance had come. "He's not a stray anymore," she insisted softly. "He's part of our family. In the end, They tentatively agreed to attend, hoping the event might be an uplifting moment and maybe even a chance to connect with others who had gone through similar struggles. Amid these community engagements, small daily moments bound the family closer to Chance. One Saturday morning, as Mia helped her mother clean windows, Chance ambled into the living room, tail wagging at a feather duster Mia had set aside. He gently picked it up, carrying it to her as if offering help. Mia giggled at the sight, calling out to her father, "He wants to clean too." The father's tension softened in a chuckle, seeing how an animal once terrified of human contact now displayed an almost playful desire to belong. Yet at dinner that night, the father braced himself for reality, reminding the mother they still needed to finalize the next vet appointment for boosters. "I'll pick up extra shifts," he sighed, "and hopefully that'll cover it." Mia overheard, guilt prickling at the edges of her joy. She vowed to find a way to pitch in, perhaps by selling crafts or tutoring younger kids. Though the father insisted she not burden herself, Mia set her resolve, scanning her limited options for how a 9-year-old might help lighten the load. Thus, as another day closed, the father and mother realized the emotional weight of responsibly caring for a rescued dog. Neighbors' opinions oscillated between cautious acceptance and lingering suspicion. Budget constraints loomed, and Mia fought a storm of both pride and guilt. In the midst of these challenges, Chance remained a steadfast, calming presence, his once timid eyes now brimming with gentle gratitude. If doubt sparked or frustration lingered, one glance at the dog's wagging tail or a soft nuzzle seemed to soothe them all, reminding them why they had chosen kindness in the first place. Still, no one fully grasped how that single sandwich might continue weaving a story far beyond the ordinary contours of suburban life, gently nudging them toward an outcome both miraculous and humbling. A gentle Sunday dawn found Mia bouncing eagerly around the kitchen, rummaging for supplies. Her father had agreed to take her to the local crafts fair, a small event at the community center. While he and Toby had quietly talked about how they might improve home security and how to cover upcoming vet expenses, Mia had hatched her own plan, selling homemade bracelets or bookmarks to help pay for Chance's care. She was convinced every little bit helped, even if her father tried to wave off her concern. The mother, noticing Mia's determination, donated a few lengths of colorful thread and a small stash of beads. "Make them pretty," she teased gently, "and people might pay $1 or $2. Mia nodded fervently, focusing on knotting patterns that would catch the eye. By mid-morning, a modest assortment of braided bracelets lay on the kitchen table. Toby, passing through on his way to the hardware store, paused to admire her work. "You've got a knack for this, kid," he said, ruffling her hair. Mia beamed. While Mia prepared for the fair, Chance lounged near the back door, tail thumping each time she passed. It seemed whenever she rustled a plastic bag or rummaged through cabinets, the dog would lift his head inquisitively. The father stood nearby, arms folded, observing Chance's calmer demeanor. With each new day, the dog's coat shone a bit more, his walk steadier. Though money remained tight, the father couldn't deny the sense of fulfillment in seeing Mia's kindness bear fruit. He sipped his coffee, recalling the bleak moment the dog arrived at their doorstep, skinny, desperate, alone. Now, with a few weeks of proper care and a safe environment, a spark of vitality shone in his gaze. That afternoon, the father and Mia drove to the community center. Chance left safely in the newly fortified yard. As Mia set up a small folding chair and a makeshift display for her bracelets, she felt jitters. She'd never sold anything before, nor was she typically outgoing. Yet the thought of helping Chance propelled her forward. The father, standing behind her with an encouraging smile, quietly engaged passing shoppers, pointing them to Mia's crafts for a good cause. Some folks recognized him as the man fostering a stray dog, nodding sympathetically at the mention of vet bills. Sales started slow. Most browsers at the fair were older folks seeking homemade pies or crocheted scarves. A few paused to admire Mia's simple bracelets, drawn by her earnest face and the father's mention of supporting a rescued stray. Eventually, a kindly woman purchased 2 bracelets, dropping a few extra coins into Mia's jar with a smile. "I love what you're doing," she murmured, patting Mia's shoulder. Mia's heart soared at the small success. Meanwhile, subtle new tensions brewed. The father noticed Ms. Green nearby, manning a booth for her animal rights group, distributing pamphlets on ethical breeding and spay-neuter programs. Catching sight of Mia's mini stand, Ms. Green approached, curiosity warming her features. "Raising funds for your dog's care, I see," she said softly. Mia nodded, bracing for scrutiny, yet Mrs. Green's tone was gentle. "I respect your dedication," she admitted, slipping $1 into the jar. "I was concerned earlier, but it's clear you're taking this seriously." Mia exhaled relief, grateful for the shift in tone. However, another figure at the fair stirred unease. A lanky man with a leather jacket drifted through the booths, occasionally eyeing the father with a guarded expression. The father, who'd been in the midst of chatting about dog training tips with a curious neighbor, spotted the man's gaze. Something about him, maybe the stance, maybe the faint scarring near his temple, pinged the father's instincts. He discreetly signaled Toby, stationed nearby, to keep a watchful eye. Toby recognized the potential threat, stepping closer to Mia's booth. Yet the man soon vanished among the crowd, leaving no certainty whether he was linked to the old biker threat or just a passerby with a similar fashion sense. Energized by the father and Toby's subtle vigilance, Mia continued selling, enough to pocket around $15, a small haul, but precious in her eyes. "I'll give it all to Dad for Chance's next checkup," she declared. The father gently ruffled her hair, pride emanating from his weary smile. "You keep a bit for yourself," he insisted. "This is also your accomplishment." But Mia shook her head firmly, echoing her unwavering commitment. "Chance is worth it." As the fair wound down, Ms. Hawkins, who had dropped by to see Mia's booth, updated them on an upcoming adoption event. "If you wanted to showcase Chance, it might help raise a bit more for his care," she suggested. The father hesitated, recalling how each event risked exposing them to prying eyes or unforeseen complications. But Ms. Hawkins clarified this was a smaller gathering at the local pet supply store, more casual than a big public festival. The father cast a sidelong glance at Mia. She returned an eager smile. "He's improved so much," she whispered. "People deserve to see how sweet he is." Reluctantly, the father nodded. "We'll consider it, as long as it's calm." "Miss Ari," Hawkins beamed, slipping a small donation into Mia's jar for a bracelet. Toby, overhearing, privately weighed the potential dangers. Though the direct biker threat seemed to have cooled, the father remained cautious of any hidden watchers. Even so, Toby saw the flicker of hope in Mia's eyes and said nothing to dampen it. A final twist of the day arrived back at home. As Mia and her father carried in groceries, they found a small package at their door, no return address. Inside lay a crisp envelope containing a short note. "We saw your story. Thank you for helping strays. Here's a little support." Alongside it, an anonymous money order for $50. Mia's father stared, stunned by the unexpected generosity. Mia clutched the note, heart soaring. Someone out there believed in them enough to send help without seeking recognition. With new funds, plus Mia's craft fair earnings, budgets for Chance's next vet visit no longer felt so daunting. Over dinner, the mother, once solemn about finances, managed a rare grin. "Looks like your dog is winning hearts already," she admitted softly. Mia's eyes sparkled. Even Toby, sitting in for a meal, raised his glass in a small toast to the quiet blessings that compassion had birthed. Yet amid that warm glow, the father maintained his vigilance, unsure if the man at the fair was a fleeting shadow or a harbinger of old threats. For now, at least, the house brimmed with a sense that kindness, in its simplest form, might truly echo back in ways both miraculous and mysterious. Mia's home brimmed with cautious hope in the days following the anonymous donation. It was as if an invisible hand had gently pushed them toward embracing Chance fully, easing the biggest financial strain, quelling the mother's budget worries, and affirming the father's quiet belief that kindness often cycles back. But for every flicker of optimism, new complexities arose, weaving deeper connections between Chance's presence and the community around them. One chilly morning, while Mia dressed for school, the father answered a call from Dr. Willems, the vet who had first examined Chance. "I have some news," she said. "You mentioned wanting to check if the dog might be microchipped. The father, intrigued, confirmed that they'd never found a chip previously, though the dog had no collar or ID. Well, we ran a thorough scan again during his last checkup. There's a faint registration ping from a partial chip, though it's not fully functional. I'm trying to contact the Microchip company, but the data might be incomplete. The father felt a stir of unease. On one hand, if Chance had a previous owner, it might complicate everything. On the other, maybe it was a dead end. Some strays roam for years with outdated chips. As Mia overheard fragments of this conversation, her heart lurched. The possibility that Chance belonged to someone else planted a seed of anxiety. What if a rightful owner surfaced, demanding the dog back? Yet she found solace in the father's calm tone as he assured Dr. Willems they wanted to do the right thing, no matter the outcome. Hanging up, the father explained the gist to Mia and her mother, cautioning that it might be a false lead. Mia pressed her lips together, resolving to continue caring for Chance wholeheartedly, no matter the outcome. At school, Mia confided in Lily about the microchip rumor. Lily, wide-eyed, offered moral support. Maybe it's from a long-lost home that wasn't good for him. He's definitely better off with you. Mia sighed, half reassured. She realized that as much as she yearned to keep Chance forever, if a genuine, caring owner emerged, she'd face a painful crossroads. The father, suspecting Mia's inner struggle, tried to keep the mood bright at home, teaching Chance to respond to a few more commands, like stay and come, using leftover chicken as a reward. Meanwhile, Toby's watchful presence in the neighborhood subtly faded. He explained that the suspicious sightings of a leather-jacketed man near the crafts fair hadn't repeated. No sign of bikers in the area for weeks, Toby murmured one afternoon, helping the father fix a fence hinge. Maybe they truly moved on. The father, though still cautious, allowed himself a breath of relief. If the threat that overshadowed them for so long had dissipated, he could focus more on building a stable life for Chance. His biggest challenge now was forging connections to help with the dog's ongoing care. The mother, who had grown fond of Chance despite her initial wariness, chimed in with a new idea. What if we invite Miss Hawkins or Miss Carter to do a small fundraiser or a yard sale? We can raise a bit more for vet costs. This notion gained traction when Miss Hawkins readily agreed, offering to host a family yard sale in her spacious driveway. Enthusiasm flickered among neighbors who'd come to admire Chance's gentle nature. Many had glimpsed the dog trotting alongside Mia in the yard, noticing how each day he seemed more robust and secure. Simultaneously, Ms. Green, formerly the skeptic from the animal rights perspective, began championing the father's dedication in her social circle. At a small neighborhood gathering, she spoke candidly. I initially worried about potential neglect or forced aggression training, but I see now how compassion and discipline coexist. That dog's transformation is striking. The father, overhearing Ms. Green's praise, felt a subtle weight lift. Earning her respect felt like a sign that they were indeed doing right by Chance. Then, one damp afternoon, Dr. Willems called back with the microchip update. The father braced for potential heartbreak as he answered. It's incomplete, Dr. Willems admitted. The registration was never updated. It links to an old address in a different county, but no current phone number. We're still digging for more info, but it might be a dead end. Relief and sadness merged in the father's chest. For Mia, who had been anxiously waiting, this half-conclusion felt like a small miracle, no one immediately stepping forth to claim Chance. Yet the father didn't celebrate too openly. It was possible more data might come to light eventually. As autumn leaves turned golden and the yard sale date approached, the father and Mia prepared for a final push to gather enough money to cover upcoming boosters. They rummaged through closets for old clothes, dusty board games, and unused kitchenware. The mother donated a few ornaments. Toby brought over some gently used electronics. Mrs. Hawkins, as energetic as ever, distributed flyers around the block. Yard sale and dog support. Meet Chance, our neighborhood rescue. The father cringed at the attention, but yielded to Ms. Hawkins' enthusiasm, acknowledging it might indeed drum up support. The day before the sale, Mia found herself idly brushing Chance's fur on the porch, watching leaves drift across the lawn. A feeling of contentment warmed her, seeing how the dog leaned into her strokes with quiet trust. She recalled the first time she'd offered him a sandwich, never imagining he'd become part of her family. The father stepped outside, noticing the peaceful scene. "Never regret giving him that food, do you?" he teased, ruffling Mia's hair. She grinned, glancing at Chance's wagging tail. "Never," she whispered, voice full of conviction. Still, a lingering tension shimmered under these gentle moments. The father noticed the dog occasionally flinched at loud noises, or cowered if a stranger approached too quickly. While Chance wasn't aggressive, the father worried about hidden traumas. Ms. Carter, the mail carrier, who formed a friendly bond with the dog, once observed him shaking uncontrollably during an unexpected motorcycle roar in the distance. Emma's father recognized that true healing for Chance was still unfolding, and each day offered small steps forward. By late evening, as the family set out boxes of yard sale items in Ms. Hawkins' driveway, they felt the brisk air hint at an approaching chill. Autumn nights lingered with deeper shadows, and though no threat lurked as obviously as before, the father's watchful instincts never fully relaxed. Inside him sparkled pride in how far they'd come, how an entire neighborhood had contributed bits of help, forging a tapestry of kindness around the dog. Yet, the final test loomed. Would the yard sale raise enough to ensure Chance's future comfort? Would the microchip fiasco remain a dead end, or re-emerge unexpectedly? Amid these shifting uncertainties, Mia and the father locked eyes in a fleeting, warm smile. They might not have all the answers, but they faced their challenges side by side, supported by a quiet hero who once wandered hungry, awakened by a single sandwich from a compassionate girl. Little did they know, the yard sale would serve as a catalyst for a new chapter, ushering in a revelation that would both confirm the power of kindness and challenge everything they thought they knew about Chance's origins. The crisp Saturday morning opened with a faint breeze and a promising sun, perfect for the neighborhood yard sale Ms. Hawkins had organized. Tables lined her driveway, piled high with everything from second-hand toys to outdated kitchen appliances. Parents strolled by with curious children, and a friendly hum of bartering filled the air. At the centerpiece was Mia's family's table, a modest assortment of household items they hoped would collectively fund Chance's upcoming vet costs. Mia stood alongside her father, scanning faces for potential customers, while Chance sat at the end of a short leash, tail gently thumping whenever someone paused to greet him. Buzzing with excitement, Mia had pinned a small sign to the table reading, "Help support Chance the rescue dog," complete with a photo of him from earlier in the week, healthy fur shining, bright eyes fixed on the camera. People who recognized her from school or the recent community events came by, offering small bills and coins even if they didn't purchase an item. Mia's heart warmed with each donation, gratitude brimming in her smiles. In the midst of this heartening support, the father remained on guard. He'd noticed a couple of unfamiliar faces lurking near the edges of the sale, not quite browsing and not quite engaging either. After the past biker threat, he couldn't dismiss the possibility of more trouble. Toby, perched near Mrs. Hawkins' booth, likewise scanned the small crowd, quietly exchanging nods with the father to signal all seemed clear. Then, about an hour into the sale, Dr. Willems arrived. Mia beamed, rushing over to thank her for the discounted services that helped them care for Chance. The vet patted Mia's shoulder, her gaze lingering on the dog's calm posture. "He looks fantastic," Dr. Willems remarked, slipping a small envelope into the donation jar. "Keep up the good work. Your love is really shining through." Mia's father smiled gratefully, momentarily relaxing his guard. The yard sale felt more like a supportive community gathering than a commercial event. Dogs from neighboring families wandered around with wagging tails, sniffing at Chance through the gaps in the fence or on leashes. But the swirl of friendly activity came to a hush when a tall, thin woman approached Mia's table, eyes instantly locking onto Chance. She wore a worn jacket and clutched a phone in one hand. Emma's father tensed at her intense gaze, uncertain if she was a typical shopper or someone with hidden motives. The woman hesitated, then quietly asked, "Is this the dog you rescued?" Her voice shook with a mix of anticipation and nerves. Mia nodded, scanning the stranger's worn features. She seemed haunted, torn between caution and hope. The woman knelt, palms outstretched, as if requesting Chance's permission to sniff her hand. The dog stepped closer, uncertain, then dipped his head to take in her scent. Mia and her father exchanged uneasy glances. The dog's body language was tense but not aggressive. The woman exhaled in a trembling sigh. His eyes. "They look so familiar," she murmured, voice thick with emotion. Turning to the father, she said, "I saw your note about the dog's chip being partially registered. May I ask where you found him?" A hush fell around the table. Mia's father, unsettled by her intensity, carefully explained that Mia had first encountered the dog outside the school, severely underweight. "We checked for a chip, but it was incomplete. No current info," he added, eyes narrowing. "Why do you ask?" The woman swallowed hard, revealing tears that threatened to spill. "I lost a dog months ago. Well, he ran away during a tumultuous time. He had a chip, but I never updated my details after moving. I've been searching ever since." Her gaze flicked to the sign showing Chance's picture. "That face, if it's truly him..." Mia's throat constricted, a swirl of dread coiling in her stomach. Could this woman be the rightful owner? Chance, standing between them, peered up at her with mild curiosity. The father, heartbeat pounding, asked for any identifying detail that could confirm her claim. The woman fumbled, pulling out her phone and showing a photo. It depicted a younger, healthier version of a dog, with a similar coat pattern, sitting in a yard next to a small child. The resemblance was uncanny, though the dog in the photo looked more robust and well cared for than the skittish stray Mia had found. Toby, alerted by the tension, drifted closer, posture guarded. Miss Hawkins sensed the shift, pausing her own conversations to watch the unfolding drama. The father exhaled slowly. "We suspected there might be an owner, but had no clue who," he admitted. The chip data was incomplete. He studied the photo, then Chance, then back to the woman's watery eyes. Meanwhile, Mia's heart raced, the memory of offering that sandwich echoing in her mind. Had she inadvertently adopted someone else's beloved dog? The father asked the woman more pointed questions. The dog's age, distinct behaviors, small scars or birthmarks. The woman answered each query with a shaky thoroughness, describing the dog's fear of thunderstorms, a tiny notch on one ear from a puppy mishap. All matched. Mia's father's stomach twisted in realization. This was likely no fraud. She truly recognized details only a caretaker would know. Glancing at Mia, he saw tears shining in her eyes. Chance, oblivious to the legalities, sniffed the woman's pant leg, tail wagging faintly. The father's chest constricted, torn between pity for the dog's old family and sorrow for Mia's attachment. The woman sank onto the grass, gently calling the dog by a different name, Ranger. At the sound, Chance hesitated, ears flicking as though a faint memory tugged. He edged closer, muzzle brushing her hand. The woman choked back a sob. Mia, perched helplessly at the table, felt tears spill. She'd done all this to rescue him, only to discover he had another life before her. Toby, trying to break the silence, cleared his throat. "If he was yours, why was he abandoned?" he asked quietly, mild skepticism edging his tone. The woman shuddered, explaining how personal crises, losing her home, dealing with a family emergency, led to the dog escaping one stormy night. She'd searched frantically, posted flyers, but eventually moved counties when finances collapsed. "I feared the worst," she whispered. "Then I saw your sign online, recognized the dog's eyes and coat pattern. I prayed it was him." Mia's father stood rooted, torn by conflicting loyalties, Emma's devotion versus this woman's heartbreak. The mother, drawn by the commotion, joined them, scanning the scene with an aching sympathy. Ms. Hawkins hovered nearby, uncertain if she should intervene or let the family sort out the shock. Chance, for his part, pressed gently against the woman's leg, then turned to Mia, as though torn between two worlds. His posture held confusion and cautious warmth, a testament to the care both had given him. Thus, the tension that had quietly pulsed beneath the surface erupted into the stark reality of a possible reunion. On one side, a distraught owner claiming she never intended to abandon her beloved dog. On the other, Mia and her family, who'd poured their hearts and finances into rescuing and rehabilitating Chance, whose bond carried more weight. The father recognized that ultimately, the law might side with the original owner, if indeed the dog's chip and her details matched. But how would Mia handle losing a companion she'd fought so hard to save? Amid the hush of the yard sale's dwindling crowd, every soul stood on edge, hearts taut with the knowledge that someone's heartbreak was inevitable, and that the final decision about Chance's future loomed closer than ever. A stunned hush clung to the scene, as if the crisp autumn air itself held its breath. In Mia's front yard, the woman knelt on damp grass, her fingers running through Chance's fur, tentative but desperate, tears pooling in her eyes. Across from her stood Mia, heart pounding, each second carving deeper the dread that she might lose the dog she'd come to love. Mia's father and mother hovered protectively, torn between empathy for this stranger's plight and the realization that any choice they made would hurt someone. After a moment, the father stepped forward, voice calm but resolute. "I'm sorry for what you've gone through," he told the woman, "but we didn't find you in time. We've cared for him, spent money we barely had on his vet bills." The woman swallowed, tears shimmering. I understand. I'm so grateful you saved him," she whispered, glancing between the father and Mia. Chance and uncertain, pressed his head against her knee, then turned to nudge Mia, as if torn by the conflicting emotions swirling around him. "Ms." Hawkins, who had been lingering nearby, quietly suggested they move indoors to discuss matters more calmly. Her presence as a neighborhood mediator felt crucial, given her neutral compassion for both sides. Reluctantly, the mother led them into the living room, away from the curious stares of a few neighbors who'd begun to gather. Mia's father motioned for Toby to follow as well, for moral support, if not legal counsel. The mother, lips taut, turned on a soft lamp, the warm glow casting long shadows around the worn furniture. Inside, Chance paced, ears twitching at each raised voice or sigh. The woman introduced herself as Carmen, haltingly explaining how life unraveled after her father's passing. She lost her job, then her apartment, forcing her to move 2 counties over. In the chaos of packing and bouncing between short-term rentals, her dog Ranger escaped. She posted flyers, scoured shelters, but eventually ran out of money and time, concluding the dog was lost for good. "I'd just about given up hope," she said softly, "until I saw your yard sale flyer on a local social media page with his photo. I recognized him instantly." Mia's chest clenched. She remembered Mrs. Hawkins taking that picture of Chance in the yard. Who would have guessed it'd lead the original owner straight to them? As Carmen continued, she admitted she'd only recently stabilized her life, staying with a relative while job hunting. "I'd do anything to have him back," she said, voice choked. The father and mother exchanged uneasy glances. On the one hand, Carmen's story held genuine heartbreak. On the other, they'd invested so much in rehabilitating Chance, forging a bond that had brightened Mia's spirit. Toby cleared his throat, speaking carefully. "Legally, if you can prove ownership and it matches the microchip, the law's on your side. But maybe we should consider the dog's well-being. He's formed attachments here." Carmen, trembling, admitted she didn't have updated documents, but might recall old vet records or photos that could confirm it. "I'm not trying to be hostile," she pleaded. "I just never stopped missing him." Overcome by the tension, Mia finally found her voice. Her gaze flicked from the dog to Carmen, tears pricking her eyes. "But he's happy here," she managed, voice trembling. "He was starving when I found him." Carmen's face crumpled. "I know, sweetie, and I'm so grateful you fed him. But you have to believe me, I love him too. I lost him by accident, and it's haunted me ever since." A hush fell, each person grappling with moral and emotional dilemmas. "Ms." Hawkins tentatively suggested a compromise. Maybe Carmen could visit Chance regularly, while they sorted out the best arrangement. But the father knew such half-measures rarely resolved deeper issues. If Carmen truly had the right to claim the dog, would they forcibly hand him over, risking heartbreak for Mia? Or would they keep him, knowing it might be denying a once devoted owner a second chance to reunite with her best friend? Mia's mother, who had quietly observed, spoke up with surprising steadiness. "We need to prioritize what's best for the dog," she said. If you can provide a stable home and the dog recognizes you, maybe he'd want to go back with you. Mia's lip trembled, bracing for a wave of sorrow. Yet the mother added, "But we can't decide that in one conversation, not while tensions run high. Let's take time, confirm the microchip data, see how the dog adjusts if you come around. If he truly wants to leave, we won't hold him prisoner." A flicker of gratitude and pain crossed Carmen's face as she nodded. Some sense of a plan began to form. The father suggested a week or two of trial visits, giving Carmen a chance to reconnect with the dog in a controlled manner. If it seemed like the dog yearned to return to her, they could discuss transition. If not, or if Carmen's living situation wasn't suitable, they might consider a partial co-ownership or a final decision that the dog remain with Mia. Each possibility carried a risk of heartbreak, but Mrs. Hawkins noted it was the fairest route for all concerned. When Carmen tentatively agreed, relief mingled with unease. Mia's father insisted they have a calm approach. "No forcing the dog into your car right now," he cautioned. Carmen nodded, wiping tears, possibly realizing how jarring this was for the dog. Toby quietly volunteered to oversee initial visits, ensuring no one felt cornered. Carmen murmured thanks, voice trembling with a raw mixture of guilt and hope. She cast one more longing look at the dog, then rose to leave. Before stepping out, she knelt by chance, softly calling him Ranger, attempting to stroke his cheek. The dog froze, eyes darting to Mia, tail a low wag of confusion. Then, with a slight lean, he allowed Carmen's hand to graze his fur. It was a fleeting moment, heavy with the silent question of whether old memories stirred in his mind. As Carmen exited, the mother gently touched Mia's shoulder. Mia gave a weak nod, tears threatening but not falling. Chance ambled over, nudging his muzzle against Mia's leg as if to reassure her. The father glanced at Mrs. Hawkins and Toby, exchanging silent acknowledgement that the situation had grown more complex than any of them envisioned. They'd managed to nurse a hungry stray back to life, but now faced the possibility that his rightful place might lie with someone else. Beyond the moral debate, Mia's heart clung to the dog with everything she had. Watching him settle at her feet, she whispered, "I just want what's best for you." The father squeezed her hand. They both realized the final test of compassion was yet to unfold, where each gentle gesture or spoken promise could reshape the dog's destiny and their own. Over the next few days, a hushed tension settled in Mia's home like a delicate glass sculpture, poised to shatter at the faintest tremor. The plan to allow Carmen, the dog's possible original owner, to visit Chance filled each moment with an undercurrent of anxiety. Mia swung between dread and guarded optimism, desperately wanting to keep the dog she'd grown to love, yet fearing she'd deny him a homecoming he might truly want. In the early evenings after dinner, Carmen arrived quietly, parking her borrowed car near the curb. Mia's mother opened the door, offering a polite smile, though the wariness in her eyes lingered. Chance typically waited in the living room, tail giving a hesitant wag as Carmen entered. Their interactions were tentative. Carmen called him Ranger in a soft, hopeful voice, but the dog often glanced at Mia before edging forward. His ears flicked as if caught between two signals, old memories stirring at Carmen's presence, while new loyalties tied him to Mia and her family. Each night, Carmen sat on the couch, gently petting his back or scratching behind his ears, tears shimmering each time he nuzzled her palm. Mia observed these visits with a pang that felt like a knot in her chest. She ached at the sight of Chance's mild confusion, the way he seemed to want reassurance from them both. Her father and Toby hung back, ensuring no sudden move or decision pressured the dog. After half an hour or so, Carmen would leave, wiping her eyes with a trembling hand. Outside, she'd tell the father about her gradually improving situation. She'd found a part-time job, hoped to move into a small rental soon. "I'd take such good care of him," she'd promise in a whispered plea. On the third visit, Carmen brought photos showing the dog as a puppy, indeed the same color pattern, the same soulful gaze, though more robust back then. Mia's father, looking through them, felt a mixture of empathy and guilt. There was no denying Carmen's genuine bond with the dog once known as Ranger. "He was my solace after my father died," she said quietly. "I lost everything else. but Ranger was supposed to be constant. In an unspoken apology, the father said, "I understand. But we love him too." That night, after Carmen left, Mia couldn't contain her tears. "He's so torn," she cried, stroking Chance's ears. "I see it in his eyes. He remembers her, but he's also happy with us." The father knelt beside her. "Chance might be torn," he admitted, voice thick with the weight of possibly giving up this dog who'd brought their family closer. "Ultimately, we want him to choose, if that's even possible." In the background, Ms. Hawkins checked in regularly, offering moral support and reminding them the final choice should always serve the dog's best interests. Dr. Willems, too, weighed in by phone. "A dog with two loving potential homes is unusual, but it's not impossible to find a compromise, like a shared arrangement if you live close enough." The father considered this, though sharing custody of a pet felt messy and uncertain. By the end of that week, the emotional tension reached a tipping point. Carmen came bearing news. She'd secured a small rental apartment, one that allowed pets. Her eyes shone with determination. "If he remembers me, if he's willing, please let me take him home." The father swallowed, gaze flicking to Mia, whose face drained of color. Gently, the father suggested they do one final test. Allow Carmen and the dog some extended time alone, maybe an afternoon in the yard without Mia's presence, to see if Chance would happily follow her or remain anxious. Carmen agreed, though a tremor of dread flickered in her expression too. What if the dog chose to stay where he found new love? The following day, a mild Saturday brightened the sky. Under Toby's watchful eye, the father guided Carmen and Chance into the fenced backyard. Mia, heart-hammering, watched from the window. For a long-stretched hour, Carmen tried coaxing the dog to play with an old toy from her trunk, speaking softly, calling him Ranger. The dog responded tentatively, sniffing, wagging his tail, but intermittently glancing toward the back door, where Mia had vanished inside. At times, he'd trot a few steps with Carmen, then pause, scanning the porch as though expecting Mia to appear. Carmen's face fell, tears brimming. She tried calling him inside her parked car, but the dog balked at the threshold. Eventually, Carmen's frustration broke through in a sob. "I'm sorry," she murmured, hugging him briefly. "I love you, boy. I swear I do." Watching this scene from inside, Mia's chest ached. She saw Chance's divided loyalties, the faint memory of Carmen's affectionate voice overshadowed by weeks of closeness with Mia's family. As the hour concluded, Carmen emerged, cheeks wet with tears. In a trembling voice, and she confessed to the father, "He's not leaping at the chance to leave. I never wanted to force him if he's found a new home. It hurts, but maybe he's made his choice." Later, Mia, father, and Carmen gathered in the living room, the mother standing by with a sympathetic frown. Carmen's voice cracked as she suggested a final test. "Let the dog outside. Call him from opposite ends of the yard. See whom he runs to." Mia's father hesitated, worried it might stress Chance unnecessarily. Yet, Carmen insisted gently. She needed closure, even if it meant heartbreak. Mia, trembling, agreed, tears lacing her lashes. "If he picks you," she whispered, "we'll let him go." So they did it. Toby and Ms. Hawkins arrived to witness, ensuring fair play. Chance stood in the center of the yard, tail wagging uncertainly as he glanced between Mia and Carmen, who stood at opposite corners. The father counted down from 3, both called simultaneously, "Chance, Ranger, here, boy." The dog's ears perked, head swiveling in confusion. For an agonizing second, he hesitated, then trotted toward Mia, tail wagging more strongly. Halfway there, he paused, hearing Carmen's desperate entreaty. "Ranger, sweet boy," flicking his ears, he turned partway as though to go to her, only to freeze again, whining softly. The onlookers barely breathed, hearts pounding for this moment of truth. Mia's tears spilled, silently urging the dog not to break her heart. Carmen sniffled, arms open in forlorn invitation. Finally, with a small whimper, Chance resumed his path to Mia, pressing his muzzle against her palm. Mia let out a shaky sob, hugging him close, feeling both relief and crushing guilt for Carmen's sorrow. Carmen stood still, tears coursing down her cheeks as the father gently placed a hand on her shoulder, voice hushed. "I'm sorry." Carmen, though devastated, forced a brave nod. She knelt, stroking Chance's fur one last time. "I love you," she murmured, voice cracking. "But I won't take you if you won't come willingly." The father offered her a quiet handshake. Toby and Mrs. Hawkins looked on with sympathy. In that final act, Carmen recognized that the dog's bond with Mia outweighed the memory of another life. Without further protest, she rose, tears shining, whispering gratitude that at least Ranger Chance had found a safe, loving home. As Carmen drove away, the father hugged Mia tightly, letting her sob into his shoulder. Chance, ears drooping, followed them inside, tail low from sensing the heavy emotions. While heartbreak lingered, they all knew that the dog's decision, guided by gentle care in his darkest hour, paved the path forward. The hush in the living room reflected a strange mix of sorrow and relief, forging the final acceptance that Chance was truly theirs, sealed by his own choice at the crossroads of two worlds. A subdued hush enveloped the house after Carmen left, tears still wet on her cheeks. Mia tried to focus on comforting Chance, now officially theirs by the dog's own choice, yet a wave of sadness clung to her. She couldn't shake the memory of Carmen's devastated face, the quiet heartbreak of seeing the dog she called Ranger turn away. Though Mia had won the dog's loyalty, it felt like a hollow victory marked by sorrow. That night, as dusk settled, Mia's father tried to lighten the mood by suggesting they celebrate with a simple, home-cooked meal. He put together a pot of stew, telling Mia's mother and Toby, who was staying for dinner, that they should all look forward now that the dog's future was settled. The mother managed a gentle smile, though worry lines remained around her eyes. She had witnessed Carmen's anguish firsthand, and it weighed on her heart. Meanwhile, Chance seemed to sense the lingering tension. He padded around the living room, occasionally brushing his muzzle against Mia's leg, as if checking she was okay. Mia knelt beside him, ruffling the fur around his neck. "I'm glad you chose us," she whispered, voice trembling with leftover tears. "I promise I'll make you happy forever." A soft flicker of the dog's tail gave her hope, though she still felt a knot of guilt for Carmen's loss. As they sat down to eat, the father's phone buzzed with an incoming call from Dr. Willems, the vet. Puzzled by the late hour, he excused himself from the table. Mia watched worry creep onto his face as he listened. When he returned, his expression bore a new gravity. That was Dr. Willems. She said the Microchip company finally found more data tied to the old ID. The mother and Mia exchanged anxious glances. Toby set down his fork, bracing for more upheaval. "She mentioned an address and a possible contact," the father continued quietly. "But it's not Carmen's info. Apparently, the original chip registration was never fully transferred to her name. It might belong to the dog's breeder or someone else from the past." Mia's stomach lurched. Did this mean the dog's rightful ownership was still in question? The father shrugged wearily. "Dr. Willems said the Microchip folks might want to confirm if the dog was sold or given up. It's messy paperwork." A hush fell over the table, the stew growing cold. All thought the same question. Could another party emerge, claiming the dog before Carmen even had him? That possibility introduced a whole new threat to Chance's stability. If someone from the breeder's circle insisted on repossession or demanded the dog's return, the father wasn't sure how legally they'd stand. This revelation pushed the family's tensions to a boiling point. They'd just navigated Carmen's emotional demand, only to face a new potential claimant. Mia, her chest tight, pleaded, "Dad, we can't lose him to someone who never even cared for him." The father placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We'll fight for him," he promised, though a flicker of doubt shadowed his voice. 2 days later, an unexpected visitor appeared at their door, a trim man in a polished jacket, claiming to be a representative of a well-known kennel that specialized in breeding working dogs. He introduced himself as Mr. Turner and explained that their records showed a young dog matching Chance's chip ID might once have been part of a batch intended for police or service training. "We lost track of him over a year ago," Mr. Turner stated, scanning the father's cautious expression. "We'd like to verify if this is indeed that dog. If so, we have a rightful claim. The father's hackles rose at the word claim. Mia, lingering behind him, felt her throat tighten. Toby, who happened to be visiting again, exchanged a sharp look with the father. This was bigger than a single lost dog. The father asked Mr. Turner for official paperwork. The man displayed some documents, photos of dogs from a past litter, incomplete but suggesting a link to the dog eventually sold to Carmen. We're prepared to refund any vet expenses, of course, but the dog should return to our care, Mr. Turner said in a clipped and businesslike tone, eyeing the father's modest surroundings with faint disapproval. At that, Mia's frustration broke through. "He's not a product you can just take back," she cried, tears brimming. "We found him starving." Chance, sensing her distress, ambled over, pressing against her knees. Mr. Turner's gaze flicked over the dog with clinical interest, as though appraising merchandise. The father exhaled a trembling breath, forcing himself to remain civil. "He's a living soul, not a commodity. Why would you want him now after so long?" Mr. Turner shrugged. "We prefer our stock accounted for, especially if a suitable training program can still be arranged. Abandoned animals can tarnish our kennel's reputation if found unclaimed." His words, though carefully polite, stung with indifference. The father clenched his jaw, Toby stepping up to quietly support him. "We're willing to challenge that in court if you push," Toby warned, voice low. "This dog was neglected. We have vet records, photos of his condition. You relinquished rights by failing to track him properly." A tense standoff filled the living room. The mother emerged from the kitchen, face grave, taking a place beside Mia and the father. Mr. Turner's posture stiffened as he realized he was outnumbered in sympathy. With a curt nod, he turned to exit, leaving behind a thinly veiled threat. "I'll consult my superiors. We may be in touch. The law stands on ownership unless proven otherwise." Then, with a final glance at the dog, he left. Silence thickened the air after the door closed. Chance whined softly, ears drooping at the tension. Mia stifled sobs, pressing her face into the dog's fur. The father, gently stroking her hair, mumbled, "We'll protect him." The mother paced the room, rubbing her temples. Toby folded his arms, recalling his own knowledge of legal wranglings over high-value canines. "They might have resources for a legal fight," he muttered grimly. "But they also face public scorn if it looks like they're snatching a rescue dog from a child." Miss Hawkins, alerted via a quick text from the father, arrived soon after. Hearing what transpired, she placed a reassuring hand on Mia's shoulder. "We won't let them take him," she promised softly. "We'll rally the community if we have to." Yet everyone felt the weight of a looming climax. Would an influential kennel overshadow a small family's claim? Overshadow even Carmen's heartbreak? Overshadow Mia's love for Chance? The father, desperation creeping in, realized they might soon face the ultimate test of compassion versus profit-driven ownership claims, a standoff that could tear open old wounds or reshape local hearts in a final, resounding show of solidarity. That evening, while the father and Toby strategized potential defenses, Mia curled on the couch with Chance, tears glistening at the edges of her eyes. She softly murmured her vow not to lose him, remembering how a single sandwich had sparked this entire journey. The dog, as though sensing her turmoil, pressed his muzzle into her lap, offering silent comfort. Outside, the autumn wind howled, a harbinger of the climatic confrontation about to break over their humble home, one that would demand every ounce of unity from Mia, her parents, and a neighborhood that had grown to cherish a once-lost dog named Chance. Soft autumn sunbeams cast long shadows across the front porch of Mia's home. In the aftershock of the kennel's threat to claim Chance, an uneasy calm settled over the household. Mia, though still anxious, clung to a newfound resolve. Her father's gentle assurance that they would fight to keep Chance kindled a spark of determination in her chest. Every day, Mia lavished attention on the dog, brushing out his once matted fur, practicing simple commands, feeding him healthy scraps. When the father drove her to school, she promised to hurry home, bounding through the yard to greet Chance's wagging tail, as if each reunion was a small victory against the looming possibility of losing him. Meanwhile, Ms. Hawkins rallied neighbors who had come to admire the dog's transformation. Word spread quietly about the kennel's potential legal move, prompting a surprising swell of support. Some neighbors offered to write letters testifying how well Chance was cared for. Others compiled receipts and photos, documenting the dog's poor initial state. Even Miss Green, the animal rights advocate, turned out to be a firm ally. "If that kennel tries to take him away against his best interest, I'll speak up," she promised, crossing her arms with fierce conviction. The father, though hesitant to stir up public conflict, realized each expression of solidarity might help if the issue ever reached a courtroom. Night after night, however, no further contact arrived from Mr. Turner or the kennel. Toby speculated they might be weighing the bad publicity of seizing a dog from a child who had rescued it from near starvation. "That's not a story they want in the local news," Toby mused, sipping coffee at the kitchen table. Still, the father remained on edge, imagining a sudden letter or official notice arriving without warning. Emma noticed his sleepless eyes, the subtle tension in his posture each time the mail carrier walked by. Chance sensed it, too, offering soft nudges or resting his head on the father's lap in the evenings, as if to say he was grateful for every day they had together. Over the next week, a quiet transformation took shape in Mia. Though shy by nature, she found herself speaking confidently about Chance whenever someone asked. At recess, a small crowd would gather around her as she described how he'd learned a new trick or wagged his tail at the neighbor's cat. In class, she volunteered to do a short presentation on what it means to rescue a stray, showing before and after pictures of Chance. Her teacher, Mrs. Carter, commented afterward, eyes shining, "It's wonderful to see you come out of your shell, Mia. You're teaching all of us about compassion." At home, the mother, once fretful about finances, softened further as she watched Mia's growth. She realized that the dog wasn't just an animal living under their roof. Chance had become a catalyst for Mia's self-confidence and a living symbol of community support. Each day that no kennel representative showed up, each new donation of dog food from a kind neighbor, each wag of Chance's now brighter tail seemed to validate their choice. The mother even joined the father in short walks with Chance around the neighborhood, a peaceful stroll that sometimes drew smiles or waves from neighbors who recognized the dog, once rumored to be just a stray. Finally, after nearly 2 weeks of silence, Dr. Willems called with a final update. The kennel had officially dropped any claim, apparently deciding it wasn't worth pursuing. They recognized there was no clear path to asserting ownership, Dr. Willems said, voice tinged with relief. Legally, they had no real contract with Carmen, and ethically, taking the dog from a caring family now would damage their reputation. Mia's father, hearing this, felt an immediate wave of tension release. A shaky laugh escaped him. They won, he realized. Or maybe it wasn't about winning. Rather, it was the confirmation that good sense and empathy had prevailed over cold commerce. The next morning, he shared the news with Mia and her mother over breakfast, a grin lighting his face. Mia nearly jumped out of her chair, hugging her father and burying her face against Chance's scruffy neck. The mother laughed softly, eyes misty, acknowledging that the darkest threat to their new family member had passed. Toby dropped by later that day, smirking. "Guess they knew the whole neighborhood would rally if they tried anything," he quipped. Ms. Hawkins, hearing the outcome, declared she'd run a short uplifting piece in her local column. A dog's second chance, a community that stood strong. Although Mia never forgot Carmen's tears, nor the heartfelt longing in her eyes, the father explained that Carmen hadn't made any new moves either, seemingly respecting the dog's choice. A quiet peace emerged. The dog was safe, the kennel's claim vanished, and Carmen, healing from her own turmoil, decided not to force a reunion. She sent a polite message, wishing them all the best. Though Mia sometimes felt a pang thinking about Carmen's sorrow, she found solace in the dog's own contentment, bounding after tennis balls in the yard, chasing leaves fluttering in the autumn breeze. If Mia's journey with Chance and the community's steadfast response has touched your heart, we invite you to carry forward the message that every small act of kindness can blossom into life-changing impact. Subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories, where compassion triumphs over doubt, and pets remind us of humanity's best qualities. Like and share this video to support our mission of spreading hope and empathy. Every view can inspire someone else to rescue, foster, or stand up for an animal in need. Finally, leave a comment below sharing your own experiences with stray animals, or how a simple act of kindness turned into something unexpectedly profound. Together, let's keep the spirit of Mia and Chance's story alive, showing that genuine love can defy obstacles and weave miracles in ordinary lives. Thus, in the gentle hush of that final resolution, the family settled into a life no longer overshadowed by legal battles or guilt. Each day, Mia woke to Chance's tail softly thumping outside her bedroom door, a reminder that the sandwich she once offered had sown seeds of compassion in countless hearts. The father, mother, and Toby moved forward with fewer burdens, confident they'd made the right choices, even as they occasionally glimpsed an empty horizon where Carmen might have been. But, in letting the dog itself decide, they'd honored the dignity of his journey. Now Chance roamed the yard under an open sky, chasing bright autumn leaves with a joy that mirrored Mia's own. Together, they lived a testament to the belief that no single act of kindness, no matter how small, ever goes unnoticed, and that the bonds we forge with those who need us most can set into motion transformations that surpass our wildest dreams.